Water pollution is the contamination of bodies of water by pollutants either directly or indirectly. Pollution kills over 14,000 people per day. That means nearly 10 people die every minute through waterborne diseases or poisoning. Nearly half a billion people do not have access to clean or safe drinking water. Water pollution affects more economical developed countries as well as less economical developed countries. Fresh water can become polluted. Pollutants can be: first, anthropogenic, that are created by human activities, or natural; second, point source or non-point source; third, organic or inorganic; and fourth, direct or indirect. Type of organic pollutions will be animal waste and food processing waste, with the effects of eutrophication and smell. Also pesticides from agriculture, like insecticides or herbicides, with the effects of loss of biodiversity. Also, we include pathogens like waterborne and fecal pathogens, with the consequences of disease. Talking about inorganic pollutants, we can say phosphates, for example, washing detergents, could produce eutrophication, change of the biodiversity. Also oil, affecting floats on surface, contaminating seabirds and reduce oxygen in levels. Also radioactive materials, like nuclear power station, could produce radiation sickness. And also light and noises, including cities and aircraft, could disrupt turtle nesting sites, upset whale navigation, change plant growth, and also upset birth cycle.
Well, we can measure the water pollution in two different ways. One is using the biochemical oxygen demand. It's a measure of the amount of dissolved oxygen required to break down the organic material in a given volume of water through aerobic biological activity by microorganisms. Well, the other way is using biotic indices and indicator species. Indicator species are plants and animals that show something about the environment by their presence, absence, abundance, or scarcity. Antibiotic index indirectly measures pollution by assessing the impact on species within the community according to their tolerance, diversity, and relative abundance. Well, the indicator species are the most sensitive to change, so they are early warning signs that something may have changed in an ecosystem. Biotics index is a scale 1 to 10 that gives a measure of the quality of an ecosystem by the presence and abundance of the species living in it. Then, the pollutants are not directly measured, but their effect on diversity, yes. Well, invertebrates are used to estimate levels of pollution, as they are sensitive to decreases in oxygen concentration in water caused by the action of aerobic bacteria as they decompose organic matter. The presence of certain indicator species that can tolerate various levels of oxygen is used to calculate a biotic index, a semi-quantitative estimation of pollution. The difference between them is that the biochemical oxygen demand gives a measure of pollution at the instant a water sample is collected, whereas indicator species gives a summary of recent history. There are two types of measuring water pollution. One is using biochemical oxygen. This measure by the amount of dissolved oxygen required to break down the organic material in a given volume of water through aerobic biological activity by microorganisms.
Eutrophication is when excess nutrients are added to an aquatic ecosystem. It can be a natural process, but anthropogenic eutrophication is more common. When it's severe, it results in dead zones in oceans where there is not enough oxygen to support life. In less severe cases, biodegradation of organic material uses up oxygen, which can lead to anoxic conditions and then anaerobic decomposition. Impacts. Anthropogenic eutrophication leads to unsightly rivers, ponds, and lakes covered by green algal scum and duckweed. They also give off foul smelling. Other changes include oxygen deficient water, loss of biodiversity, death of higher plants, death of aerobic organisms, increased turbidity of water. The excess nutrients are nitrates and phosphates, and they come from detergents, fertilizers, drainage from intensive livestock, sewage, and increased erosion. Well, the process: 1. Fertilizers wash into the river or lake. 2. High levels of phosphate. 3. Algal blooms form that block out light to plants which die. 4. More algae mean more food for the zooplankton and small animals that feed on them. 5. Algae die and are decomposed by aerobic bacteria. 6. But there is not enough oxygen in the water, so everything dies as food chains collapse. 7. Oxygen levels fall lower. 8. Eventually, all life is gone and the sediment settles to leave a clear blue lake.
The Gulf of Mexico has the largest dead zone in USA, caused by extended nitrates and phosphates from the Mississippi River basin agriculture. One solution to this is the strategy of nutrient trading as a voluntary market-based reduction of nutrient use. This is the most cost-effective way to reduce nutrients on industry and farms. This type of water quality trading scheme allows those that can reduce nutrients at low cost to sell credits to those facing higher cost nutrients reduction options. And the nutrient trading allow sources of pollution to meet their pollution target in a cost-effective manner and could create new renewed opportunities for farmers and others who implement low-cost pollution reduction practices. Red tides. In coastal waters, algal blooms are sometimes caused by the excess of nutrients. If these phytomactons are a species of dinoflagellates, the blooms looks red, and this can be dangerous because the algae produce toxins which kill fish and accumulates in shellfish, which can make humans seriously ill. In lakes or slow-moving water bodies, slowification leads to a series of damaging change, which severely reduce biodiversity. In fast-moving water, eutrophication leads to a temporary reduction of biodiversity downstream, which can be followed by a recovery and restoration of clean water. Okay, now we have some strategies for reducing pollution. First, we have to altering the human activity to produce pollution. So some examples can be ban or limit detergents with phosphates. Then we can use eco-detergents with no phosphates or new technology in washing machine. Third, plant buffer zones between the fields and water courses to absorb the excess of nutrients. Fourth, to stop leaching of slurry, that is the animal waste, or sewage from their sources. And finally, educate farmers about more effective timing for fertilizer applications. Also, we have to regulate and reduce the pollution at the point of emission. An example can be that treat water before release to remove phosphates and nitrates, divert or treat sewage waste effectively, and finally, minimize fertilizer dosage on agricultural lands or use organic matter instead. And finally, we have to clean up and restorage. And for example, pumping air through the lakes, breeding sedimenters with high nutrients level from the rivers and lakes beds, removing excess weeds physically or by herbicides and algicides, and finally, restock ponds or water boundaries with appropriate organisms.